Hi, everyone. I'm Essie Faye, author, speaker, interpreter, and veteran educator. And I want to welcome you to the Heal Yourself Sis mini course. This is our first one. We have a wonderful guest with us. Before we get started with our guest, I just want to invite you to just let your hair down, and I want you to know that this is a safe space. This is a space where we are embracing one another. We are respecting other people's opinions, and questions are welcome. This space is a healing space created for you to come and receive resources, and to be a part of a community, a healing community. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, we will be discussing healing from grief, and we also will discuss how to support a child that is grieving. And our guest today is Em Lilly, or Easter Lilly. I'm going to read a little bit about her, um, so that you have an idea of who she is. But also, um, I really want you all to just open your hearts and open your minds, to receive whatever comes your way today. I believe that you'll receive the healing that you need, and I hope that your life will be forever changed um, from this encounter. All right, so M. Lilly. She is a Chicagoan native. She's passionate about working with youth and families. She is also my twin sister. I think she's a genius, and she's just such a generous person, and she's so resourceful. She discovered her life's passion through participation in early college and mentorship programs, where she experienced the transformative power of wraparound services. As a result, she has a new, unique perspective, and she aims to provide adequate support to the most vulnerable members of our population, the disenfranchised and often forgotten. Um, she loves children. She's an urban youth worker. She's a minister, a mentor, a licensed clinical social worker. She's a grief counselor, right? Um, she got her bachelor's from Northwestern and her master's of arts in Christian ministry with a concentration in youth ministry studies from North Park Theological Seminary. And she also has a master's in social work from UIC's Jane Addams College of Social Work. She's worked in education, the educational and nonprofit field for over 20 years, and she has a wealth of knowledge because of her experience with youth development, youth guidance, counseling, and the provision of support services in faith-based and community organizations. Um, she is energized by the society's challenges and driven by a genuine desire to serve others. Her life's mission is to be an ally and a valuable resource to youth and families as they learn, grow, and experience success together. She believes that this is one of the best ways to positively impact the world. She's also a mother as well as a wife, and she is a believer. She's a woman of faith, and a woman of prayer, and also a woman who believes in helping others. Even when she's having a hard time, she reaches out and she helps others. So please, please, please welcome Easter Lilly, or M. Lilly.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Essie, for that warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here just to share some of the things that I've learned and also some resources with all you, whether you are an aunt, an uncle, a parent, a mentor of young people, and also just to talk about grief. So can you just go to the next slide, please? So this is a little bit about me and my interest in grief. Esther read a little bit about my bio, but here are some things that kind of piqued my interest in grief. I did volunteer for a couple years as a hospice social worker. I was definitely interested in that. Um, I've been a healing counselor for a camp where I work every year now. This will be my second year as the clinical director there. It's a grief camp for young people who have lost one or both of their parents. Every summer, it's called Hearts to Art out of Roosevelt University, or I should say the Auditorium Theater. And then I'm a licensed clinical therapist. Next slide, please. So today's presentation goals are number one, to explore the definition of grief and its effects on our lives, to consider the principles of grief that can shape our perspective and approach to grief and grieving, to identify the ways that grieving is different for adults and children, and then also to highlight helpful resources that can help adults to support grieving children. So hopefully today you'll get a taste, since it is a mini course, of what an more extensive course about grief would look like. And so I'm hoping to pique your interest, make you curious about grief, and uh, challenge any stigma around grief in just a short amount of time. This presentation is filled with a bunch of resources, and so I just try to expose you all to as many resources as possible within the 30 minutes that I do have. And it is pretty structured, but if there are any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat and we'll address them at that time. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about grief. So a lot of people ask the question, we all have our own ideas about grief. And so this is the question that I'm posing. What is grief to you? And so we all have our experiences. We have, how we feel about grief. One thing that I did want to drive home today is that grief is not an illness or a mental health problem. Okay. Grief is a natural part of life. And this is a quote from Julie Kaplow. And so during this presentation, I will be featuring a number of resources. And a lot of this information is free information that has come from various resources, that's come from my experience. A lot of the things that I do share have come from my experience, but also just knowledge that's readily available to the general public. You just have to know where to look and how to make sense of it. So, the number one game changer or paradigm shift, I think that you know, I would love for us to all embrace is that grief is a natural part of life. One of the things that I was able to learn as a hospice social worker is that in the circle of life, there is death. Death is a part of that. And so it's really important, to work on taking away the stigma, when it comes to death, and just seeing grief as a normal part of life, but also death as a normal part of life. And so I think, changing that view and that perspective and normalizing the experience really can help us all. I know that this is something that definitely is taboo in our society. Many people don't want to talk about grief. People don't want to talk about death. I mean, there are a lot of things that, you know, um, are stigma. There are stigma. And so I think it's so important to just kind of normalize the experience and let people know it's okay, you're not alone. Um, this is something that we all experience. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're gonna keep talking about grief. Um, and with that, um, this is a definition. It says grief is a natural and often profound response to loss, encompassing a wide range of emotions and experiences, including sadness, anger, denial, confusion, that can affect individuals physically, emotionally, and psychologically. So this is just telling us that though it is natural to grieve, it is a profound experience and it's a natural response to loss. So it's not something new. People have been grieving for hundreds of thousands of years, just for a long time. It's a natural part of it. But there could be a wide range of emotions involved. And also, there are various parts of our being that are involved in the grieving process, right? So, our physical self, our emotional self, our psychological self. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Next slide, please. So this is a short video from one of the resources that I'm featuring. It's definitely an amazing website, and so we're gonna go to it. This is asking, what does grief feel like? So if we could cue up that video, we could just get a little snippet of what grief feels like. And this is it. It is speakingofgrief.org. And this website, it encourages us to do better at grieving. Okay, so this person is saying grief feels like a mess. And there are a lot of people saying it feels like a wave, it feels like a different version of love, like it feels like many things. So let's see what this person has to say. So there's no sound in this video. Right now, I'm not quite sure what's happening. We did test it to see.
It's probably because I muted myself. So
Right, so unmute yourself and
yes,
let's play the video, please.
I'm gonna play it again. Sorry about that. If they don't see you for a period of time. Can you hear now?
Yes, we can. Can you go?
Perfect. I'm gonna go back. Surprised when you're not
Just
there.
stop it and then you can
Sorry.
go back.
There we go. Grief shows up not in the way you expect it to. It's messy. When you hear about grief, you hear about there are stages to grief, and you move from stage to stage, and that's just not true at all. You might move from stage to stage, but then it's not linear. You're never recovered. People expect you to have moved to a different stage if they don't see you for a period of time. They're surprised when you're not there. I think a lot of people said we don't know what to say, and I would always say that's cool because I don't know what to say either. But it was confusing, really confusing, and you wouldn't always know why you were not feeling right or unhappy or disconnected or distracted. Um, you'd think it was something that was in your immediate universe, and then when you realise that it wasn't that, then the only answer was that you were grieving.
Yeah, so thanks. So this person kind of gives voice to the messiness of grief and also the uncertainty and the confusion that are associated with grief. Um, because, grieving often is unpredictable. Right? And he said it doesn't go as you thought it would go. But the reality is that no one expects to grieve. Grief is sudden, and people are taken away. Well, loss is sudden, or sometimes, most times, it's unexpected, or even if it is expected, the reality of it can be unexpected, and there's a sense of confusion, a sense of messiness because, um, quite frankly, our worlds have been turned upside down. The things that we know are no longer, um, for sure. And so we really do have to, number one, deal with that. And number two, um, begin to reorganize and reorder our lives, even with the pain, that we're feeling. Next slide, please. So there are different types of grief. Like there's it, this statement talks about how grief is a natural human response to any loss, right? Most times people are talking about grieving, they're talking about losing a significant person. Um, But there are other things that people grieve, whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or any other significant life change. So, any change to our lives that's significant, it could be a change of habit, a change of routine. Um, People grieve that, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have the right and the opportunity to grieve so that we can move on with, other things we want to do, or at least, um, embrace where we are now. Think about where we were, and then, move toward evolving into who we want to become in the present and the future. Next slide, please. So there's normal grief, and I really like this. I really like this resource. I put it down at the bottom. What'syourgrief.com. This is from their types of grief. And so they had normal grief listed, of course, sarcastically. It says, ha ha ha, oh wait, you're serious? Okay, fine, let's talk about normal grief. And so what I did highlight in bold, it says there's no typical average grief. There's no time limit. Timelines or grief experiences generally vary from one individual to another. Normal grief simply refers to a grief response that falls under an extremely broad umbrella of predictability. Okay, so they do talk about how grief moves toward acceptance and making significant meaning out of your grief experience. So that's the goal of, when we experience grief is to move toward acceptance of grief and to find meaning in grief experiences. And then there's anticipatory grief, which is the reaction to a death that you're able to anticipate, such as when a person dies from a long-term disease or illness. So like someone who has cancer and they're being treated and you're anticipating, oh, they're going to pass, but before they actually pass, you begin grieving, as they go through, or it could be hospice stay too, right? Like, you know that it's going to happen and you start to grieve, when they go into hospice. And then I did add complicated grief, which refers to reactions or feelings of loss that are debilitating and really negatively impact your functioning. And so for this complicated grief, some people believe that complicated grief happens when you may have a diagnosis of anxiety or depression, and that is further delaying the grieving process or impacting the grieving process altogether. But this is from whatyourgrief.com. And so I pulled it from there, but um, it's a really good resource. You can check it out. Next slide. So what do people grieve? I just put a list together. This is not comprehensive, but death of a significant person, a marital separation or divorce, imprisonment, personal injury or illness, dismissal from work, retirement, career change, pregnancy, and pregnancy loss, right? Sexual difficulties, fertility challenges, changes in living conditions, change in social activities, school, faith community, etc. So just regular changes, loss of relationship or partner, loss of youth, vibrance, loss of physical looks, loss of hopes and dreams that were never realized, loss of life as it used to be, loss of a past that they never had. So like I never had a dad, I never had a mom. We never had everything that we needed at home, whatever it is that you wanted to have, loss of a home, loss of an identity, right? Who they once were. These are all things that people grieve. Again, it's not comprehensive, but I believe you have a right to, right? Whatever it might be. The question is, how does that look for you? And how long do we engage in the grieving process before you feel like, okay, I can move on from that? And do we need help grieving in those areas? Or can we deal with it on our own? What are our coping strategies that we're using? To manage the grief that we're experiencing because of these things, because of our past, because of how our lives turned out. It wasn't what we thought it should have been, or, or could have been, or, we always wanted that, I don't know, white picket fence house or whatever. It never happened, whatever it might be. What are we doing, now that we know what we're grieving? Or if we don't know what we're grieving, how do we find out? Maybe, okay, I'm always mad at the world. Well, am I grieving something? You know, um, and if so, what is that thing? Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of a big thing. I would like so like this is secondary loss and grief. And a lot of people do not they don't think about this, but this is really significant that there are secondary losses. So our primary loss might be our significant person, but then we have secondary losses like on top of that. So a loss forever changes the world of the bereaved. It's a new environment, personal and social, an environment where the lost object is no longer present. So your person is no longer there, right? An ending has occurred and that demands a new beginning, right? So before that happens, a period of transition takes place. During this time, the bereaved closely examines what has been lost and what has been gained as a consequence of the ending. What has actually changed? What continues the same? What is new? What experiences, roles, expectations, values, and opportunities and fantasies are to be given up? And what new ones must be assumed. Can you click on this link? This is just a written link from a hospice organization, and this is something that you could definitely, take, but it's about understanding secondary losses and grief. So that paragraph came from there. If you scroll all the way down to page 2, it actually has a list. Okay, so it says, stop right there, please. Right, numbers page numbers 1 through 5. It says the following are some of the many different losses a person may experience after the death of a loved one. So, number one, the loss of that loved one is they're gone, right? But then you have a loss of a large chunk of yourself. Under who you are or who you were in relation to that person because of the relationship that you have, that is gone. Loss of identity, right? The roles of service. Like, who are you now? You used to be a wife, but now your husband passed away. Like, who are you now? Loss of identity, loss of self-confidence, loss of your chosen lifestyle, right? So now you're being forced to begin a new way of life despite your own personal wishes or choices. Your life was one way, next thing you know, you don't have that. Loss of security, right? Loss of feeling safe, loss of a known family structure, right? You may have had, this is how my family goes, this is how it runs. That's no longer there. Loss of the past, loss of the future, loss of direction, loss of dreams, loss of trust. Um, Other things people don't think about, loss of finances, right? That person is gone. You may not have the financial stability anymore. Um, loss of the ability to make decisions they have on here, loss of a sense of humor, loss of health, loss of inner happiness and joy. Like these are all the intangible things that are on this list. Scroll down, please. But there are other things that are tangible, right? If you scroll down. Okay. Also, loss of patience with self. Like these things are all, intangible. They're all internal. They're all like you can't touch them. But there are other things that are tangible, right? Like your social loss of social network, right? So if your husband, your spouse, your partner might have had, friends, and now all of a sudden you don't have friends anymore because those friends they don't know what to do or how to respond. Like your social connections um are gone, with that. And so it becomes a compound loss. And so it's that much more significant in your life because maybe you're not reaching out to people as much anymore because, you know, people don't know what to say or how to reach out or if it's okay, and so you don't have that social aspect of your life anymore. And that's huge, right? Even for young people, if someone passes away, they have to go live with someone else. Let's say a parent passes away, they have to go live with an aunt. Can they remain at the same school? Will they be living at the same house? Probably not. So, a lot of things can change and shift around. So their life as it used to be, that's a secondary loss, to the loss of a person. Can you go to the next slide or go back to the presentation? And go to the next slide. Okay, so I have some grief principles, and I think I'm doing pretty good on time. I have about 10 minutes left. But I think one of the things I want to invite us to do is to make a paradigm shift, or at least be open to a paradigm shift, because these principles are really neat. And I think, a lot of times we need someone to say these things to us so that we can have the right approach to grief, because I just in our society, I don't believe we do grief well. We don't do it well enough. We don't want to talk about it. We run from it. You know, it's just so, and it's cultural. How you deal with grief is cultural. So I think grief and death is cultural, excuse me. So number one, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. So that is important principle because, it lets us know that, and I have a statement under there is that grief is universal yet individual. So it's our own. It's the way that we do it. Our feelings and expressions are okay. Your feelings are your feelings, however you are, the feelings you're having, no one can tell you how to feel. They can, but that wouldn't be appropriate. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Some people keep it in and they let it bust out whenever they wanted to. People find other ways to express it. Some people don't express it until they really have to. So I think that, it's really just important to be gracious to ourselves and to others, and allow them to go through their own process and know that it's universal. It's a part of the human experience. We all experience it differently though. Um, and so I think that's important. And then number two, grief has no timeline. And this is important things that a lot of people, who were interviewed or videos that I had seen, and people I talked to, they talk about how the pain, it doesn't go away. Like you continue to grieve throughout your life, for a significant person. And this quote says, when we grieve, we can't control the process. We can't control how long it takes or how many times it starts over. And this is actually from, like I said, it's from the website about grief that we went to for the video. They have a ton of resources. They have a ton of stories, grief stories, videos that you can look at, especially if you're looking for a place for healing, a place to identify with people, a community, right? And then there are also support groups as well that you can access if you're going through grief. There are local support groups. There are also in-person and virtual support groups, if you need someone to talk about. But the main thing is that I don't think anybody should grieve alone. It's important to have a community of support. Okay, so grief has no timeline. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Next slide, please. Number three, grief is not linear. This is what the man in the video was saying is that, like there's the 5 stages of grief. It's helpful, but it's not a prescription for a step-by-step grieving process, right? So all of these things are expected, right? Denial, anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance. And then there are other models of grieving that people ascribe to or people, use for, their guidance of people through the grieving process. As you can see, some people are saying you go from step to step to step, right? And you finally come to acceptance, right? But the experience you got was all jumbled up. Like you jump back and forth between all these experiences. And so it's really just it has to do with the person. It has to do with how we go through the process of grieving. It has to do with, I think, our understanding of grief, and also embracing that grief and knowing that it's okay, that you're not alone, that this process is normal, whatever that looks like for you, and not comparing your grieving process to the grieving process that others are experiencing, or you might see them experiencing or not experiencing, right? And some people think like, okay, if you don't have a lot of outward expression, you're not grieving or you're not allowing yourself to grieve, which I mean may or may not be true, but who knows what that person does when they are in their own space, when they dedicate time, to go through the grieving process. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, grief is emotional and physical. So, there are so many strong emotions that come with grieving, at various moments in time, as well as your physical health can be impacted by grief. You can experience tension, problems sleeping, rashes, physical pain. Like there's a lot. Every part of our being is involved in it. Someone said that grief is a whole body experience, right? So there are a lot of things that can happen physically in our bodies, emotionally within us, psychologically. And that's number five. Grief can impact our normal brain functioning. So when we are experiencing grief, then we can be forgetful. We can have difficulty concentrating. We can have difficulty making decisions, difficulty thinking clearly. A lot of people have described the first 3 to 6 months, depending on who you are, as being in a fog. And you're like, I don't even know, is this really happening? Like I'm just trying to make it from day to day, right? One day at a time. right? So I think the thing about it is that this is all normal. And I have this link here. Um, can
Should
you
I,
click on
should I
this
click it?
link? Yeah. Yeah, so this is talking about how we grieve in our own way. Again, speakinggrief.org. Can you scroll down? It's talking about how we're grief. It says grief comes with being human. It's a process of living and losing. Like just knowing that it's normal. It's okay. This is how we all experience grief. So you can scroll down. Let's see what's there. So, and it's talking about all of us doing it separately. Right. And this is the quote that I wanted us to see. All of us do it. It's a universal response to change, but we do it differently. It's unique as our fingerprints. Okay. So I put that link in there. I don't know if it's going to be shared, but just so you all know, like this is a really great resource. And if you scroll down to the left, it has um each of the principles that I was talking about to the left, right here in this box, this grief resource box. It has it takes you through things, how it impacts our brains, kids, child bereavement resources. So like it has also their own list of resources. Okay, you can go back. So I think like it's just really neat to see, go back to the presentation.
Okay, hold
It's
on a second. Let me put this in the chat. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat because so that you all can have it, so you can look at it on your own.
Yeah, it's a really great resource. So you can just go to the next slide, please. Okay, so adults and children grieve differently. So I think this is one of the biggest things about, a lot of times as adults we don't really know like how to support children or we're like, are they grieving? Like, what's going on with them? I'm not really sure if they're processing it, so but this is just letting you know that children's grief reactions are influenced by their developmental stage. So we really have to think about their age and development and or if they, sometimes whether or not they have a disability, um, that could influence it, but it can include behaviors like clinging, nightmares, changes in school performance, and they also may experience emotional outbursts, guilt, or difficulty. And so, uh, this is just a link. You don't have to click on it, but it's alunanetwork.org, which is also a resource particularly for um, people who are supporting children experiencing grief. And so they have a bunch of things, but it has the developmental responses. If you go to the next slide, I have a couple different, well, I have a couple slides about this, but it has children on the left and it has adults on the right. And I'll just choose a couple different things. So, one thing is that children grieve in spurts. They may seem fine from moment to moment, and then they become very upset the next as their brains struggle to cope with sadness for extended periods. So, while children are grieving in spurts, like they might grieve and then they go back to the regular play, a regular state emotionally. Adults grieve continuously. And so it's a more sustained and continuous process. We talked about regrieving at new developmental stages. Like as children grow up, they grieve again. So as they might be 5 to 8, they're going through grief, right? Then they might become, tweens and they're going through it again. Teenagers, they're going through it again. So they are revisiting and re-experiencing grief-related loss as they are developmentally, like growing developmentally. And then adults experience intense sadness, and anger or other emotions, um, just overall. And the kids are expressing grief through their behavior, like I said. Um, and so, like I said, they like different clinginess, regressions, changes in their appetite. Adults generally have a more mature understanding of death as permanent and irreversible. But if you go to the next slide, it says children have difficulty understanding death. Many of them, they struggle to grasp the finality of it. They, may seem temporary or reversible depending on their age. Okay, that is my time. Um, but I have a number of, um, differences. If you could just go to the next slide, you can keep going. So
Just
magical
just
thinking.
keep going, Easter. Just
Yeah,
keep
so
going.
magical thinking is one thing. that, young people may feel like um, something that they did caused the death. It could be, their thoughts, their actions, and they could blame themselves for death. Whereas, that's a little different. And asking repeated questions, also children usually cope through use of play. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a link. It's a PDF and it has
You
the
want me to click
developmental
on? You want me to
stages.
click on it?
You can click on it. It has the developmental stages. It's from Dougie.org. And I have some other things from Dougie.org. But it's here. It talks about all the developmental responses to grief. And I just wanted to include that in so you all could just know, because it's a lot to go through. But if you look at it and you look at your child that you're supporting, you can say, okay, they might be crying, have anxiety,
Right.
irregular sleep, so you can say like, okay, wow, like I can look for these signs in my child or in the child that I'm supporting to see whether or not, they're experiencing grief, and it also tells you what's their concept of death, at that particular age so that you can use the right language and, provide them with support. Okay.
This is a really good resource because
Yeah,
you can
Dougie.
look at so you could even really look at their concept of death so that you can understand how to really meet them where they are.
Right, exactly.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
parents feel like they don't know what to do. They don't even know where to start. Um,
Yeah, or it could be aunts and uncles too, or mentors, because sometimes parents don't know. Parents are grieving themselves, right? Like, but someone else who has a different connection to the deceased or the significant person that's been lost, then they might be able to, say a little bit more or do a little bit more. Okay, can you go back
yeah,
to the presentation? Go
I
ahead.
can, but I really like this because just even the common responses like nightmares or behavior changes. I know as a teacher, a lot of times when students lose parents, then it shows up in school. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're acting out or something is different, they're quiet or they're sick in their bodies, they have stomach aches, headaches, and we don't know what's going on, but then you find out, oh, their grandmother passed away, or oh, they lost their dad, but they still are coming to school without even taking a break. So it's really important, to
Mm-hmm.
understand these common responses to grief, or you might be upset that your kid is bedwetting, it's a lot of things, or they're clingy. So this is a really good resource for parents, for aunts and uncles, for grandparents to really keep an eye out on what's going on in their in the lives of the children who have experienced loss.
Yeah, it's a really good resource. So a lot, and I think as we keep going, I do have some resource in there for um uh school because school is really important. It's a huge part of children's lives and families' lives, and so it's so important just to be able to bring the school into the picture as well. Okay, so that's one. If you can go, so this is another resource. It's 10 things grieving children want you to know. And so it talks about it has statements. So if you scroll down, one of the main statements is children want to be told the truth about death.
Yes.
So tell them using age appropriate language. Um, they look to you as a role model for how people grieve. So you might be like, I'm going to be strong, or a lot of young people feel like they need to be strong for their parents. They want to talk about the person who died, right? So you might say to yourself, I don't want to talk about it, but just knowing that, you know, um, they want to talk about that person. They may miss them, and that can be very helpful for them. If you scroll down, it also talks about number four. They express their emotions through play, so it's really important. And maybe even some problematic behaviors. Just trying to, they want your attention. They want to know that they're going to continue to be safe and taken care of, right? They need to know who will take care of them if you could not. So it's really important just to be forthcoming about, what will happen, if something did happen to you. Not that you have to, um, cause them to be, worrisome, but it is important for them to know that they will continue to be cared for.
Yeah,
And
I'm so glad that you said that because a lot of kids, even adults too, like you, when you lose someone close to you, then you become afraid that another person is going to be gone or taken away because death sometimes is so sudden and it's unexpected. And so you're like,
Hmm.
man, if this happened to granddad, what's going to happen to auntie? If it's going to happen to auntie, is it going to happen to my mom? Is it going to happen to my dad? So that's
Hmm.
really important. We don't think about that a lot of times as adults, but it's so true.
Yeah, so other things they benefit from being included in mourning rituals. So like let them be included in the funeral and the memorial. Some people used to think like no, kids don't need to be included, but it really helps them as well. They need you to help them feel safe. So clear and consistent boundaries, give them room to interact with with peers and adults outside of the family. They need to be taught coping strategies, right? Like how do they comfort themselves? What are things they can do when they're feeling like they miss the person, their significant person. And then they talk about children being included in making decisions. So asking them questions like, what would you like? What kind of flowers or whatever. Just letting them, include them. And then also the biggest one is that they need you to take care of yourself. Because if you don't adapt well to a loss, then they're not going to adapt well as they're not going to do that because you are their role model as a parent, as a aunt, as a mentor, whatever it is. Young people are looking to you as an example. I just thought this is a really good resource. It's right on the website. Um, I didn't see that. I didn't see they had a PDF, but definitely print out the page, save it as a PDF, whatever. It's a really good resource
This
just to
this
hear from the child's perspective.
This is really great because, especially the last one that you said, because it's really hard for parents if they're grieving too. Like I can imagine it's hard to want to get out of the bed. It's hard to feel like doing anything to kind of pick yourself up you know, and work with your process and without avoiding the grief because it's easy to just avoid it, but sometimes you don't realize kids need you to do that. Like your kids need to see that, you're grieving properly. You know,
Right.
they need to talk about it too instead of avoiding it.
Right. Or feeling like you need to be strong for your children. But just knowing that you can tell them like, hey, we both miss this person. It's okay, we're gonna get through this together. I think that is important because you have extremes, like people who avoid and then people who are just like, I'm a mess, I can't do anything. Like I think a more balanced perspective is being able to grieve together as a family, as a community, um, and get through it together. Okay, can you go back? So you're gonna go to the next slide. Other resources. So Eluna's they have on that same website, they have the 6 R's for supporting grieving children. Number one, reach out, find resources and a network of support if you need it. Reassure, tell the child that they are safe and loved and show them. Routine, try to stick to a consistent routine and schedule for sleeping, eating, and childcare. Release, make time for creative outlets. Remember, include children in the memory activities and rituals, and reflect and connect. Tell the child they'll be taken care of and loved. So these are their strategies, and they talk a little bit more about that. But we really could take each one of these and make a whole list of what that looks like for you and for your family, as far as your routine. That's one of the things that's so difficult when a partner or a loved one passes away and they have responsibilities. Maybe they dropped the child off at school. Maybe they picked them up after aftercare. They took them to their basketball games. They do whatever. So now that falls on the other person. But it talks about trying to maintain a consistent routine. Not that, they don't know that something has happened or someone has been lost, but that consistency is going to reassure that young person that everything's okay in their world. Like even if it is, we were able to keep the house, they didn't have to move and change schools, whatever it might be. That's so important. And so yeah, I think it's so important to just um, you know, choose to list out how these things will look in your life and to customize your plan. But these are their ways to support.
Now, these are some good things. Now, could these also be used for adults? Like the R's, the
Yeah,
the 6 R's.
for sure. I think this is just a regular, these are regular things that you do as an adult. But if you looked at, well, I didn't get a chance to go through everything for all the sides of how adults grieve. But one thing that is different from children and adults is that adults reach out. Adults reach out, they seek therapy, they seek help and they're able to get help. But sometimes young people don't necessarily have the words and they're not expressing things verbally. And so they are not reaching out, their parent or guardian, or someone in their family reaches out on their behalf once they recognize that they're experiencing grief. So that's the number one thing. And then having that reassurance, a lot of times adults reassure themselves it's going to be okay, or their community reassures them, or their family members, right? And routine, you have to get yourself together. Like it's this, all of this can be applicable. It's just the adult has to um, find time and ways to do it themselves,
Hmm.
as well. So yes, for sure.
And
Okay,
so,
he goes,
so the child just needs that. The adult has more advocacy than the child because they don't
yeah,
sometimes.
more advocacy. Yes, more advocacy and agency and
Yeah.
access to resources, right? Because, depending on how old the child is, it's there. Everything's dependent on their guardian or parent. And if they've
Mhm.
lost both of their parents, then okay, well, what happens? Um, okay, can you go to the next slide,
That's
please?
good. That was three A's: advocacy, agency, and access. All right, all right.
Yeah. Okay, so how to support grieving children. This is from the Dougie Center. It's another resource. It's another PDF, and it just talks about things you can do when young people are experiencing strong negative emotions. So if you make this bigger, it talks about how children grieve. Can you make it bigger, please?
That's
I
what
wanted to read that
that's
part.
what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give me a sec. Give me a
Okay.
sec.
Children's grief can look like big energy. Big energy is a way that children express different emotions. That's what I'm talking about. So it's talking about kicking, hitting, zoning out, not listening, yelling. These are some examples. So if you go to the next page, they have a bunch of things, activities that you can do, 10 activities for high emotions. And I mean, this is just a two-pager, right? You can say, hey, you can smell the flower, blow out the candle. That's breathing. You can use an angry box, right? Like you can build an angry box filled with items that you can use safely when you feel angry. You can do jumping jacks, have a movement break, play I Spy. So that's a focus activity. I mean, there are a bunch of different things. One here that you can do. Well, there are a bunch of other things you
Dance
can do too.
party.
That's right. Some of the things that help them to relieve some of the tension in their bodies. Um, like movement breaks, but then also activities of interest, right? Like preferred activities, things they really love to kind of move them from being in the big energy space to being in the calm energy space. Okay, can you go back to the next?
Oh, this is good. Let me just put this in the chat. I mean, all of these resources are really good. I think I want to let me go back to hold on. I need to, there we go. Put this in the chat. These are really good resources for parents and just not only parents, but
Adults,
anybody that works,
positive adults. Yeah,
anybody,
positive.
yeah, anybody that
Yeah.
works with children.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, rights of a student who's grieving, and this is from the National Association for Children Grieving, and this takes it to the school. And so this talks about the rights of a student who is grieving. One thing I wanted to mention before when you're talking about school is that oftentimes young people don't know they have bereavement days, and so they can actually take bereavement days from school, and I believe it's up to 12. Between 6 and 12 bereavement days that you can take at different times, or you can take all at once. And I believe in the state of Illinois, but it talks about the rights that you have when you're grieving. And I think I want to say they modeled this off of the rights of students in schools, and also could also be the rights of special education students, because they do have a personal bereavement plan for students that can be um, created in it's a collaboration between a school counselor and the family. And it's so important. So then the kids will know, like, hey, this is what's going to happen if I'm not feeling like I can do school that day. I can get extensions on assignments. I can get extra work, extra time to complete work, whatever it might be. So it says I have the right to grieve on my own time in my own way. Um, I have the right to collaborate and design my grief support plan with school staff who understands, right? So that's the grief support plan that I was talking about. I have the right to share or not share about my grief. I have the right to ask for support and not be identified by my loss, right? So my loss should not define me, but I can still ask for support. So this is just a good um talking piece when you're working with families. I believe it goes along with the grief support plan that will be created, and that could be found on the nacg.org. And I'll show that resource in a little bit. But this is about school because grief affects your school performance. It can affect your school performance,
Mhm.
and so just being
Even
able
how you
to.
show up in school,
Right,
it's just
exactly. How
it.
you show up or how you don't show up.
Yes,
Because
yes,
everybody's like, what happens to that student? Well, they lost grandma. We don't know if
yes.
they even go to our school
It's
anymore.
true.
You
It's
know,
true.
we don't know what's happening.
Hmm.
So it's really important. So if you can go to the next back to the presentation. Okay, so go to the next slide. So here are two resources. And this is my last slide. Well, this is before questions, but my last slide this is the National Alliance for Children Grieving. If you can click on it. Um, and so this is a really great resource. Oh my goodness, I really enjoy everything that they do, everything that they put out. It's a national resource, the National Alliance for Children's Grief. And it's really cool because their goal is that no child should grieve alone. And so you can find support groups here. You can become a member and have access to resources, access to trainings. But what I want to show is the resources and support tab. If you can click on that, that would be great. So go to the resource library, please. So in the resource library, they have a bunch of things. They have PDFs, that can be really helpful. And then they also have, things that you can buy. So they have grief talks that have been recorded that you can go back and listen to. They have activities that young people can do, like creating graphic novels that talk about their grief experience. They have a listening guide as far as like how do you listen and support families. It's in Spanish and English, these things. You scroll down. They have different types of loss. So, like loss of someone to substance abuse, loss of someone to suicide. They have the teen do not poster. They also have a teen grief journal that they created that you can go online and buy. It's $20 for any teen who has lost someone, and it's filled with prompts. It's a really great resource. It's in Spanish and English. Scroll down. Oh, what's the next page? And then they also have activities. They have an activity book for families, where that could help you to honor and memorialize your significant person. But the main thing I think is just there are resources here. They also have pamphlets for professionals and adults who are supporting young people. They have a resource for supporting all children who are grieving. So that's even children with disabilities. Um, it's just a really great resource. And you could, scroll around. They also award grants, for projects that, so that help children go through the grieving process or help people to create resources that could, support families. It's just a really good resource overall. Um, yeah. And then the last thing that I do have is I will be starting a class. I was trained by staff at Arizona State University. Um, and I'm offering a parent support group. It's going to be starting in the middle of April. What it is parents get access to an online training. It's an online training for 10 weeks, and it's all about how do you support your children who are grieving. And it's completely free. And you have access to this program once you're enrolled, this online program, you have access to it for a year. But it has a lot of tools that you can use with your children who are grieving if you want to provide them with support. And so it has tools like empathetic listening, and you learn how to do it. And then when you come to the support group, there are going to be 6 sessions of the support group. And you'll get a chance to talk about how it's going with implementing some of the tools that you've learned through the online program, and then also set goals, and just talk to other, parents who are supporting children who are grieving. So if you're interested, you can click on that and you can register, or at least let me know, and then like put in your information, fill out the survey, and that's registration. And then I will follow up and get back to you with the next steps for getting involved in the parent support group.
Okay, I have a question. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is virtual, right? The parent support group is virtual.
It's virtual, yes.
Okay. Now, does it have to be parents or can it be grandparents? Can it be aunts and uncles, godparents, or is it just limited to
Well,
parents?
it should be caregivers, because the important thing is that it's important for you to actually have access to the young people every day, on a daily basis, because what happens is that you learn new skills every week. And so every week they have like tools that you can use to measure how you're doing. So they might say, quality time. How did that work out? They also have one-on-one time like this. These are all skills that you're learning. And they talk about them um in the program. And so you're able to rate yourself, and then every 2 weeks you meet with the support group. And then you're saying like, hey, just check in for accountability, but then also everybody talks about their experiences with the program. And so the first meeting is the introduction, and it'll talk about the outline of, the support group, but then also what to expect. And then after that, we will meet every 2 weeks, for an hour, just to check in and talk about our experiences. And then after that's it, you just go back and refresh yourself when you want to access the documents. Like they have printouts. Um, it's all pretty short, because the expectation is that you would, if we met the first week, we would meet and we'll talk about the expectations. And the third week, 2 weeks later, we will meet, and then you will have done weeks 1 and week 2 sessions on the program online. And then we'll talk about those sessions um, during our second meeting. So the expectation is that you progress on a weekly basis, and then we would discuss the program and how people are doing in it, what observations they made, um, what progress they made, or what progress they didn't, and what obstacles they had um, during the support group.
Okay. Wow. This is so great. This is really good information. Um, I want to take questions, but before we go on with the well, if there, I want to take questions, because I think that's important to open the floor, um, for questions. But I do want to ask some, I want to give you some scenarios, unless, hey Kiki. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute or you can drop it in the chat. Um, for for Em, I think she's done a phenomenal job. Thank you so much for sharing the resources, sharing your knowledge. But I do have some questions that I have for her that I would like to, um, I would like for her to address.
You're sharing your screen. Did you want
Yes,
to?
I know that. Yeah, I know I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, got it.
Because I'm going to another PowerPoint presentation. for the screen for the scenarios. So I just would like to hear, how you would counsel because you are a licensed clinical social worker, and I want to hear, I want you to give some feedback to the people that are listening, and then also those that will catch the replay, um, about maybe what they can do or how you would advise someone in these cases. So, are you ready? Okay, so let's start with the
Sure.
first scenario. So, we're talking about death, the death of a loved one, family members, friends, partners, or pets. So, Deja is a 25-year-old single woman. She lives alone in a big city. She recently lost her German Shepherd, Lightning. Lightning grew up with Deja in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Deja had countless memories with Lightning and was devastated when he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. She watched him steadily decline after each surgery, and she had to make the decision to put him to sleep so that he would suffer no longer. So, my question is, how would you counsel Deja? And what are some important things to remember?
Yeah, so I mean, first I would say, I mean, we talked about how um grief is not just about, just losing a significant person as far as humans. It's a significant person overall. So I think we just have to it would be treated similarly. Um, just because when it comes to grieving, there's a lot that's happening, right? So I think number one, we talked about how there's no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no time limit. So I think number one, just being able to say, "Hey, Deja, your feelings are valid. You feel how you feel, and not minimize the loss that Deja is experiencing, um, but also letting her know that it's important for her to be compassionate, toward herself, and also patient with herself during this loss, and to explore her feelings because he talked about how grief is not just one feeling, right? Grief is a number of feelings, and how grieving is not linear, but there are going to be ups and downs, highs and lows, peaks and valleys, right? Um, so I think number one, just being able to be compassionate, and also be okay with, her feelings and know that it's normal. Um, no matter what you're grieving, that your feelings are your feelings, and no one can tell you how to feel. So I think just kind of number one, just being introspective and normalizing the experience, and making sure that Deja has a grief community, and a support community where she can feel safe going through the grieving process, safe and understood, right? We definitely don't want to minimize her loss. We want to help her through it, in a way that feels good for her, and also at a pace that feels good for her. So my advice would be, to reflect and embrace how she is feeling, and the pace at which she wants to grieve. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. I would use those principles that we talked about, to reinforce um, some of the things that she might be doing to deal with the grief. Because this here it is. This scenario is not. It doesn't say what she does or
Mhm.
how she grieves at all.
Right,
It
right.
just says that she had to make a decision to put, to put her pet to sleep. I can imagine that being a very difficult decision to make. It says that she was devastated, when her dog's health was failing. So she might be experiencing some anticipatory grief too, right? She started to grieve before she actually had to put him to sleep. So I
Mhm.
think taking all that into consideration, I would just go back to the principles and also try to just help her if she needs to make a paradigm shift when it comes to grief, um, to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One of the things that I love about your presentation is that you are talking about the reality that grief, a lot is happening during the grief process. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of people, myself included, are sometimes not self-compassionate, and we don't really
Hmm.
understand everything that's happening when we are dealing with grief. And many people, ignore it. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about it. But it's impacting your life every day of your life, and
Yeah,
sometimes you don't realize that you're responding. It's a grief response until after the fact, you know.
that's true. That's true. Self-awareness is so important. It's so important, but also I think that paradigm shift is important. And that with those principles, it's so powerful. It's so powerful because a lot of times people feel like you should get over it,
Yes,
or
yes, it's true.
you should be done grieving by now. But
Exactly.
if in fact your belief is that there's no time limit on it, then it's happening naturally. You're not
Mhm.
necessarily in control of how
Yes.
it's happening, right? But you know by faith that it's happening, you know, um, and that you may be able to, be on more solid ground
Yeah.
in the future. That doesn't mean that you won't continue to grieve,
Also,
you know.
can you talk about the fact that some people feel like you should get over it? You mentioned a lot of times that it's just something that you're going to really just have to navigate, and you may have to live with it for the rest of your life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, you will have to live with it for the rest of your life because it really becomes a part of who you are. It becomes a part of your identity. I believe that's what acceptance is that
Wait, I can't hear you. You might be having technical difficulties.
embrace the fact that
Yes.
you won't be but you can me? Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. At first, I couldn't hear you
Okay.
for like a minute. Go ahead. Is it just me?
But
Can
what I'm
you
saying is,
hear?
what? That you can't hear?
Yeah, it was just like it was like that. Can you just say it again?
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm saying I think it's how we've been socialized. It's how we've been socialized to believe you need to get over it. When in reality, it's not. Okay, let me say this. People believe you need to get over it until it happens to them. And I think that most things are like that. When they experience it, they realize you really can't get over it. Like it's not that easy because um there is so much that's happening. I talked about the secondary losses. That's huge. Okay, so I just lost this person, right? For example, we can use Deja. She just lost her dog. Can you think about maybe she goes to the dog park,
Mhm.
right? Regularly. Okay, well, she can't go to the dog park no more. She don't have a dog. She's gonna be real creepy, like looking, like they're without a dog.
Right.
That's a whole support community. She used to go to the pet store, maybe to get, whatever. Maybe she made connections at the pet store. Okay, she used to go and get him or her groomed, right? Okay, so that's a part of her community. She no longer does that. That means that all of that, all the people, all the experiences that she had that were connected to her dog, she no longer has that. What is she gonna do with her life? She has a whole
Mhm.
bunch of time now
Not to mention
that
walking
she
him every day, multiple times a day,
Yes, that's right. That's right. All the
feeding him.
items. Yes,
Mhm.
all the items, the toys, the events,
The
the
pictures,
pictures, all of it.
the
She does,
memories.
that's right. But now she doesn't have that connection. That's a secondary loss on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
right? The friends who have their own dogs, is she going to want to be around them again?
Right.
So it's like everything has been impacted, like, and she's dealing with not only losing that dog, but losing her social connections,
Yes, that's
her
true.
network. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody might say, just get another dog. Really?
Exactly.
Like,
You
you've
can't
got to be
replace
kidding me. That's right. You've
that.
got to be kidding me, right?
That's so
So,
insensitive.
yes, but people do those things. They say do those things all the time until it happens to
Mm.
them. That's
Right.
all I have to
Right.
say.
Right. Right.
That's why people say it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Let's go to the next scenario. Okay, relationship breakups, divorce, separation, or the end of a significant relationship. A father of three, Johnny's in the process of divorce. He discovered that his wife was having an affair with a coworker. He thought things were fine as he was constantly working long hours in the office. It was there that he was served the divorce papers. What advice would you give Johnny? And how can he
Well,
begin to grieve and process?
well, I think that I will go back to the principle about how grief is not linear, for sure. That there are definitely stages. And you can go back and forth between the stages. Like we know that there's going to be some denial involved, right? Like he thought things were fine. There's going to be some anger, right? I'm sure he's pretty angry that she
Served him at
stepped
his
stepped
job.
stepped out on him, right? He
Hmm.
might be embarrassed that he was served at his job, and angry, So there are a lot of feelings, and so I think I would encourage Johnny to explore those feelings, but then also to let him know that um it's okay to grieve the loss of a relationship, and then also maybe he can look and see, try to um really look at his life, his marriage, and what happened in it. At what point, did his marriage start to take a turn? Did he notice some things that were happening? And then even now, does he think his marriage is salvageable? You know, um, and if not, what might his future look like? Um,
This is really good too
you
because Johnny
know,
has three kids. So while Johnny is going through this process of grief, and not to mention his wife, although she did step out on him, the children are also experiencing the grief and the loss of everybody living together and probably the uncertainty of what happens next.
yeah. Well, one thing that we talked about when I talked about those secondary losses, it talked about how people, I mean, you can say things are lost, right? But then there's a transition process. And with that transition process, there is a reordering of roles and asking yourself the questions that are on that PowerPoint presentation, what has been lost? What is still intact? You know, um, what needs to be fixed, or what is going to actually change, right? And this is the same thing, like, okay, what is going to change? Will we live separate houses? Will we, like, what can this be fixed? I think is always, a question, whatever it might be, you know um with the laws. And if not, what are the consequences of the loss? Are there any benefits,
Mhm.
that come with this loss? Are there any penalties or, negative consequences that come with the loss? So I think that going through that transition process, or at least sitting down to determine, like, okay, if this is really happening, like, can I do a cost analysis, to see what does that look like? And that might, change over time, or it might change it once he's talked to his wife, or who will be his ex-wife, or once he's talked to the children or whatever. But I would say don't, you know, run away from the grief, but just know it's normal. And um, once you find meaning in what's happening, then you'll be able to, you know, figure out what's next.
I thank you. I feel like that's super important to say don't run away from it. Like this is a normal thing. It's something that we all have to confront and deal with. And it's okay. You know, just it's okay. Don't run away from your feelings, don't run away from your pain. Um, but explore it. And that's hard. You know, healing is hard. You're facing a lot of change. But the takeaway seems to one of the biggest takeaways seem to be, just deal with it. Stop and confront it. So thank you. I think we have more. Let's see if we can do one more. Um, Job loss, losing a job or career, um, which can lead to financial instability and a sense of loss of identity. Kyle was unexpected called into a meeting at the Fortune 500 company Monday morning. He had worked at the company for 10 years in hopes of climbing the corporate the corporate ladder in his office. He had sacrificed many hours working late, holidays, and on his off days to study and go to additional trainings and networking. He missed special events with family and friends. He was told that the company in this meeting was downsizing and that they would let him go with the severance package. What advice um would you give him as he's like facing, just losing his job and possibly losing his career for 10 years and a sense of a loss of identity because, that was who he was, his job.
Hmm. Um, I think with Kyle, I I would say the number one vent. I would say vent. Say what you need to say to your therapist or in your journal or, wherever you need to say what you need to say. And then after, you've done that, I don't know how long that will take. For some people, that's hours. For some, that's weeks. If you go on a binge of venting, definitely do that. If the anger and rage comes, find a way to manage that. It might be working out, it might be doing something that you love, it might be spending time, with, people that you know, that know you. It could even be your support network in your business community, maybe other members of Fortune 500 companies, um, maybe mentors, in a safe space for sure. That I believe that's what came up in the chat. Um, Being able to do that, but then also, I think, prioritizing the things in your life, or maybe seeing this as an opportunity to reorder and reprioritize things in your life, given the circumstances that you're in. For example, the late hours, the holidays, you know, um, going to additional trainings, networking, really measuring and asking yourself, what have you gained as a result of the sacrifices that you made? And then also, what have you lost? Asking yourself, the identity that you once had, is that the identity that is ideal for you at this moment in your life, depending on where you are, right? I don't know how many kids Kyle has, or if Kyle is married, um, right? Like special events with family and friends, that could be, extended family, it could be mom and dad or whatever. But the question is this identity even worth holding on to? Right? Like,
Question.
or is it time to reinvent yourself? Is it time to reimagine the man that you want to be? Um, now that you have been, now that you can release, you have an opportunity to, release your former identity. What do you want to do? If people ask the question, if you could do anything and money was not a issue, what would it be? This is an opportunity. I think it takes some reframing, um, so that you don't see it as, oh, they just dropped me. I gave my whole life. 10 years is a long time, but it's
10
not your whole,
years.
yeah, but it's not your whole life though.
Mm.
Like it's what have you gained from those 10 years
That's a lot.
that you could take, right? Even people who have 20 years, what have you gained that you
Hmm.
can take and that will propel you into your next 10 years, if anything at all,
That's
right?
good.
Like, I think just writing those things down, identifying those things, and then sitting with your mentors, you know, and forgiving as well. That'll take time, right? Because that was, you just stabbed me in the back. I just got let go unexpectedly,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it's shocking. You're going through all the stages, the denial. I can't believe this happened to me. The
Hmm.
anger, the bargaining, but let me just come back for one more year, like whatever it might be. But I think acknowledging, where you are and what you've gained, what you've lost, looking at your personal values at this stage in your life and prioritizing your values and taking what you've learned and what you have and pursuing maybe pursuing a passion that you've put on the back burner or um, asking yourself if you want to do the same thing again or if you want to do something completely different. Because it really could be an opportunity to really shake up your world. And it may be a chance to do something that you really love or, um, go somewhere if it is another job and you're not an entrepreneur, to go to into a role that is more sustainable or fits you better in a particular stage of your life. Because 10 years a decade, like you've changed so much. Like, okay, who you were in your 20s, you're not that person in your 30s. Who you were in your 30s, you're not the person in your 40s. I don't know where Kyle is, but I would dare to say that you know, he may have felt as if he was outgrowing the company as well. And sometimes you feel that and you're just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna hang in here, see what happens. Um, it might be like that. So
No, that's really good feedback. Okay, I think we have a time for one more. I really want to do this one. Um, Miscarriage or infertility, experiencing the loss of pregnancy or facing challenges with fertility. Pregnant John has been married for 5 years. His wife has polycystic ovarian syndrome. They have been trying to conceive for 3 years. They've tried several methods, including in vitro fertilization. 3 cycles ended in 3 miscarriages. John has resolved to be strong for his wife as he saw her crumble each time. He is hurting just as she is. What advice would you give to John and his wife um, regarding processing the losses and grieving um, and just grieving them?
I think therapy, number one. Um, I think, being involved in therapy consistently is going to be very important because they will be able to have dedicated space and time to talk about their marriage um, and their fertility journey with a mediator. I think, it could be a really neat thing. Of course, they would, have to be open to allowing a person into um, their personal um, space and um, a very sensitive area in their marriage. But I think it could be a good thing, just, setting a time and having consistency. So if it's like weekly, um, that could be a really neat thing, whether it's virtually or in person. I would recommend that or, suggest it. And then I would ask them, I would ask them about the miracle question. You know, they've been dealing with infertility for some time. Like what if that was no longer an issue? Like what would change? How would they know it changed? Um, and then um, what would it look like for them to work through the grief that they're experiencing together?
Mhm.
Um, I don't, because the other thing is that I don't know if they talk about their grief with each other. Some people don't, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they're right there
Yes,
with
it's
each
so
other.
true. And they're grieving. They
Um,
could be grieving separately. One of the things that Kiki mentioned is that John needs to feel safe, because he's being strong for his wife. And a lot of times when when we think about a woman miscarriaging, immediately we think about that woman. And a lot of people don't really think about the men that also experience that miscarriage. They experience that loss as well. So, that could be a very hard thing, for just I don't think there's a lot of spaces for men, safe spaces for men to share and really talk about and process and deal with their emotions regarding infertility or miscarriage and loss in that way. Just loss in general. I think a lot of women um would ask for help and seek help from a professional, like a licensed professional counselor or an accountability partner or a trusted confidant, as opposed to a lot of men.
well, so I think the other thing though is that there's a lot of research coming out as well about how a lot of times the miscarriage is not it doesn't always lie with the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like that men are more responsible for the miscarriages than women are.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think, that is a lot. I can't say that John knows that data that came out, but I can say that, the issue itself when it comes to miscarriages is the blame, like the blame and the guilt, sometimes the shame
Yes.
that comes along with that. Because the question is, why can't I carry my babies? Like why won't they stay?
Yes.
It's questions of inadequacy,
Mm-hmm.
questions of not being good enough or worthy or, you know, why aren't things working out for us? Disappointment, dreams deferred. Like, there's a bunch of dashed hopes, so I just think
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of feelings. And like that's the one, question why that's the one reason why it's so delicate. Because the question is who is to blame for it?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
um,
also wanting answers.
why? Yeah, why is it happening? Why does it continue to
Biggest,
happen?
yes, that's the biggest thing for grief anyway. A loss. When you experience a loss, the question is why? Why is this happening to me? Why am I experiencing pain? And then
Right.
a lot of people look for something or someone to blame. And,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people even blame God. God, why am I going through this? Why am I experiencing this? Without really acknowledging that, okay, some of these things that we're experiencing are just a normal part of life. They happen, and our faith does not make us exempt from those hard and tough experiences, but we're hurt by them, and we will be hurt, but you know God is able to heal us. And when we partner with him by using a lot of the strategies that you talked about, we're able to heal.
Yeah, I mean, I think faith definitely is important for sure. And then also, maybe adapting a non-traditional perspective on masculinity, strength,
Hmm.
protection, or even just knowing that, not just men need to feel safe and be protected, but I'm sorry, not just women, but men also need the same thing. So I can't say that John's wife is aware of that, but I think um it is important to acknowledge that both people are hurting. But the thing is, can they do that without a mediator? Because I
Hmm.
don't know what their home is like. Um, and I could even imagine being just overcome with sadness at at three miscarriages,
Yes.
right? And so here they are. But I
And they
mean,
have a young marriage. They've only been married for 5 years. You
yeah,
know, that's tough. It's so many moving
yeah,
pieces. Lord help.
yeah,
You know,
there are.
so
But that's
many.
why yeah, that's why we need the support that we need, though.
Yes.
We definitely need that support, because you know what, you can also say like maybe John is a part of a brotherhood community, like, and he has mentors that he could talk to about this, because I think addressing it in a space where it's a gender specific space is different from addressing it, when you're just you and your wife. You know what I mean? And the same thing if his wife is a part of a women's group,
Yeah.
or has her girls or whatever. Just that no one is grieving alone, I think is important, right? So maybe they get nurtured by, women and by men separately, and then they come back together again and they share their experiences and share their feelings, and they're able to go to therapy and, I mean, all of that. It's like you need wraparound services,
Yes. Yes.
so.
Yeah. That's so important. You need multiple spaces. And I think a lot of times, and we spend a lot of time talking about, just the psychological and the research proven methods and strategies to grief and healing. I think also you need, the spiritual aspect as well, where we lean into our faith.
Mhm,
And I think the challenge is, as believers, is that we often lack the resources and the knowledge and understanding of how to really process, take time to stop. Yes, we need the spiritual disciplines. Yes, we need to lean on God and faith, and that's essential to our core and who we are. How do we begin
mhm.
to marry the two so that we can, by faith heal, but also work with God by using these strategies? Can you speak to that a little bit as we wrap up? Because we are over our time. This is so good.
So I mean, I think that God is powerful. God is strategic. Um, and I'm saying that because I think there are people in faith communities who can address these issues. The problem is that we're not able to get to those people oftentimes. We don't know who the people are, or we don't know the expertise that we have in our congregations. And I think that that is one of the biggest challenges, because it's not necessarily always the person who's on the pulpit or who has a platform to speak. But there's so many parishioners, like there's so many people who are just worshiping in the house of God who have so many levels of expertise, resources that they can lend to people. But the challenge is that people don't know. They don't know who we are. And so I think that there definitely needs to be more awareness and more strategic um and intentional identification of people in the house of God who can say, hey, you know, so that people can say, hey, I have 10 doctors at my church. I need to sign up with one of them and go get my checkup, if I'm comfortable with that. Or I have 15 therapists, at my church. Okay, maybe I need to refer them to one of my friends, right? Or, or I can go and visit one of them, or I have, I don't know, like I have someone who can help with housing security at my church. I really need to touch base with them. Or I know about bankers or whatever, financial, literacy per people. Like I just think it's so important to have that, because we are people of faith and we are going to churches, whether that's virtually or in person, we are here. But the thing is, people don't know that we're here and they need us. And so I just think like that is one of the biggest things. I don't know how many churches are doing some type of census or some type of um, call out to professionals. But professionals, we believe in God. God has blessed us with our professions. I don't see why there will be a problem with us using our professions in our faith communities to help the people of God.
And
So I just think it really just is going to take an effort. And some people do, some houses do it better than others. I can say
that's
that,
true. That's true.
you know.
But I also think that it is important to create spaces. Like, yes, identify the people that can, the professionals that can help, the resources that you have available, but also create the spaces where people can come and get the resources and the help that they need. And like you said, it depends on the house, it depends on the church. Um, and that's important. So we have platforms like this. Um, that help spread the word and free opportunities for people to get the resources and the healing that they need. You're absolutely right. How can people connect with you? Thank you so much for what you did. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. How can people connect with you? Um, to continue their healing journey. I don't know, anything that you like to share further about how people can connect with you and how they can continue to heal.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for having me on. I did put my email address on the last slide, but you can email me and then I'll get back to you. I know that's so old school these days, email,
No, that is old school.
but you can
Can
email
they follow
me.
you on, can they follow you on social media?
Yeah,
Can
I
they?
don't put a lot on social media. I mean that would definitely change. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I didn't put my what is it, my handles, but I am there. I haven't posted a lot, but that again, I will have
Mhm.
to change that. But you can follow me. You can search for me, Easter Lily on Facebook, because that's who I am. Um, but yeah, you can also, if you email me, I'll get back to you. And we could continue to talk about things. I also probably will be on with Essie sometimes. I might be her tech person since, as you can see, she was she was navigating all the tech today.
Oh, yes, and I got skills.
It took a little bit
Thank you.
longer than usual,
Yes,
but
yes. You were
it
like, come
happened.
on, get to the next slide, the next slide. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute.
So, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for just having me.
Yes, and thank you so
And
much.
thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing and just being available. You're bright and brilliant, and I just have so many things, wonderful things to say about you. So guys, if you have any questions, Easter Lily, you can hit her up at eastermayyoung@gmail.com. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and use the resources. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube so that you can share, and hopefully on Facebook so that people can see. This is a very valuable mini course. It's the first one. So we have a few more to go. And it's all about healing. So I just hope that you all can continue to heal and that you're blessed. I'm going to say a prayer because we are women of faith. And we know that God is the healer. He's the Lord our God that heals us. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for this information that was shared with us. We ask God that you would continue to bless him, continue to open doors for her to share this message of healing and hope to those who are hurting. We ask God that you would bless everyone that is receiving this information, whether it is now or whether it's in the replay. We ask God that you would meet them at the point of their need, that you would heal their hurt, oh God, that you would heal their brokenness, God, that you would help them to grieve their losses and to process the pain that they're experiencing, but also to come to know you because you are our God that heals us. You are the God that consoles us and that mends the brokenhearted. God, we thank you and we give you praise. We thank you for hearing us and answering us. We're sending your word and healing every listener right now. In Jesus' name, we call it done. Amen. Thank you so
Amen.
much, everybody, for joining. And thank you again.
You're welcome.
All righty. Goodbye.
Bye.